For 2 decades, the WNDX Festival of Moving Image has been championing the works of Winnipeg and Prairie cinema. Now, the festival will be looking back on its legacy with its latest series of screenings and panel discussions, which officially opens this Wednesday. Cecilia Araneda is the Executive Artistic Director of the WNDX Festival of Moving Image, and she joins us in the Classic 107 studios to tell us more. Good morning.
Thank you so much for having us.
Of course. So maybe you can first tell us a bit about, for those who don't know, how the festival first got started 20 years ago.
Yeah, 20 years ago, there was a group of then emerging filmmakers. They were, me among them, that we wanted to create a film festival. There was nothing back then. 20 years ago, it was also pre-digital as well. So it was analog film, and there was also some videotape. And it was just the environment at the time was really lacking in a film festival resource. There were other resources that were made. Obviously, a video pool had existed, the Winnipeg Film Group and the Cinematheque. And the Cinematheque itself is super important for local filmmakers, but the Cinematheque reaches out to a local audience only, whereas a film festival reaches out nationally and internationally in terms of the attention that is given to them. And so for our local filmmakers, not having access to that just meant that they were not getting national or international attention to the level they could have otherwise. And so this group of filmmakers wanted to create this resource, myself included. And I will say, everybody told us it was impossible, and I think it kind of should have been. But, sometimes when you do things, when you don't realize you can't do them, and they somehow work out. And that is what happened to WNDX. Was a bit of a magical experience. The first edition itself, we included this program, which has become a bit of a cult favorite, I guess, if you can call it that. It's called the One Take Super 8 event. And we give filmmakers a cartridge of Super 8 film, which is like traditional film for people who might not know what that is. You can just record it once. You can't go back and re-record over it. It's done.
Wow.
And you also don't really have the ability to edit it as much. You have to go get it developed at a film lab with traditional photo developing techniques. And so we give these cartridges to the filmmakers, give them Super 8 cameras because they're also very specialized cameras. And we sent the films to the lab. And the filmmakers themselves, as a result, only see their films at the event.
Wow.
So they don't actually get to see it before, and they don't even know if it really turned out. And we included that in the first edition of the festival, and it was crazy. It was just so full. There was a lot of energy there, and those kinds of components, bringing in some national filmmakers, some international filmmakers, and having the local participation. It's more of a community event. It's intended to be more fun. People can take risks without a lot to risk, basically.
So another distinction between this and maybe other sort of film events that take place here in Winnipeg is right in the title. I'm really fascinated by the idea of Festival of Moving Image versus film or movie or cinema. Maybe you can talk a bit about that title and what it signifies about what people can expect over the next number of days.
Yeah, well, WNDX is an experimental and independent film festival, so there's a bit of a distinction there. Sometimes, not this particular year, but very frequently, we also program gallery works and works that are in non-traditional spaces. And so when people understand films or movies, they understand them that they're going to go to a traditional cinema space with one screen, and it's a time-limited experience. But when the Festival of Moving Image itself just expands the idea to be different kinds of forms in different kinds of spaces. The name itself, WNDX, which is WNDX, derives from the idea of Winnipeg independent and experimental. But we didn't want a long name like that. We found that would be really problematic. And at the end of the day, people could understand somehow, most people know that the W is for Winnipeg, I think instinctively, and then they just kind of roll with it. And over time, over the past 20 years, people just kind of understand it. It's a brand, so people
Yeah.
seem to really understand it. Yeah.
Right, very catchy to have that there. So the festival, as we've mentioned, opening on Wednesday with a tribute to a huge figure in Windex's history, and certainly a very influential figure in Winnipeg's cinema scene as well, in James Asmundsen, who passed away last year at just 42 years old. What can you tell us about him and what makes his cinematic vision, or moving image vision, if we're going to be even more specific, so unique?
He was a real big part of Windex. He was one of the, not the original organizing group, but he carried through like the middle ages, I guess, of Windex, and really is a large part of why Windex exists still today. As you can imagine, these small nonprofit organizations exist with a lot of volunteer labor and a lot of passion, right?
Yeah.
And so it extends itself. It's not just in the arts, it's everywhere else. And so he was really one of those figures who did a lot of that labor to carry this festival forward. And so when he passed away, obviously we knew that we had to reflect on his artistic career as well. We don't program ourselves, and so he had never been programmed at Windex before. And so this represents the opportunity for us to, our first major opportunity to show his work. And it's also a real retrospective look, and the first major retrospective look at his career. His film, he's legendary. His films are very campy and very humorous, leaning towards transgressive, but kind of the funny edge. He has some more serious, darker films as well. And it certainly, and he started in the video, he rose up from Video Pool, and so he started with this kind of video editing aspect, which is a unique way of looking at film, which is a little different from editors who come from a more of a film tradition, who are kind of working in traditional narratives, fiction films and things like that. And so you start off his body of work as super lo-fi VHS type work, and then you get into more experimental modes after that. I think his work is always a crowd pleaser, I will say. It is most of it is incredibly funny. Yeah.
Well, what a wonderful tribute then to his memory, to be able to showcase his works as part of the 20th Windex Festival of Moving Image. What else can audiences expect over the course of these next few days?
Well, we do have our, the staple of our film festival is we have our open call series, which is when we ask filmmakers from around the world to submit to us, and we program out of that. We have a number of shorts programs that come out of that, and we also have one feature film. So a feature film is a long film. It's a documentary film called Eastern Anthems that plays on Saturday at 7 p.m. And it is about the cyclical cicadas that come out in the U.S. So these emerge every 17 years, which I think is a fascinating concept. And I know that a lot of people, a lot of people are kind of aware of them, and it's more common, obviously, in the United States. And so there was a Montreal filmmaker, his name is Matthew Woko, who wanted to make a film, who'd been researching these brood of cicadas for many years, and then the COVID lockdowns happened, and he could not enter the USA to film. And so he had to find a co-director who was from the US to go and help shoot him. And so it becomes a long-distance way of making a film. And along the way, because they did shoot on 16mm film, the film was expired, which creates a particular kind of effect, and the camera also was broken, which also reflects something about it, which happens in the film world when you're working in like true analog film. Yeah. And so then the film itself also becomes a process about the process of filmmaking and everything that kind of went wrong. And it's opened up, it's one of those reveal the process things. And it's super fascinating. It makes a connection between the cicadas that rise up every 17 years and social justice movements like the Black Lives movements that kind of swell up for a moment and then they kind of dissipate, and then questions what remains of those movements after, years after, and the memory that remains of them. And it's a very similar connection, or the filmmakers are making a connection to that for these cicadas that like literally take over everything. So for those people who don't know, there is these cicadas come up cyclically. They're not always 17 years, but they come from underground and they rise up as almost like moths or butterflies would, and they take over everything for a period of time. And so it is a real phenomenon.
It certainly is. And it's interesting to think as you're talking about these different like social justice movements as they have their moment, and then you're right, maybe public's attention sort of wanes a bit, and then it's then a matter of finding ways to build consistently onto that social justice to then be able to maintain it in sort of cultural attention. And in the same way, having these kinds of festivals and having these kinds of events keep building this kind of awareness and build this to be an even more stable and even more sustainable part of Winnipeg's cultural ecosystem as well. In your experience, not only as the executive artistic director of WNDX, but also in your own work as a filmmaker, Cecilia, what's so special to you about this film scene, this moving image scene that helps to continue to foster people in this art form?
Yeah, I think Winnipeg is a really interesting environment for filmmaking. It's not a great audience city, I will say, and so we're always trying to work for that. But something about, let's say, the low cost of living in comparison to everywhere else means that filmmakers can actually functionally spend a lot of time doing their work. They don't always have to worry about where the rent's going to come from, and that is something that gives Winnipeg a really unique filmmaking landscape. Obviously, in terms of our region, our prairie region, for example, Winnipeg filmmaking really is a standout. It stands out with a national and international perspective. And the community itself is willing to innovate in a lot of different experimental forms. They're really unconventional. I remember having spoken to Guy Madden several years ago about some of his filmmaking and how he started out. And it was the same idea. It's the same idea that WNDX started out, which is like it was just a group of filmmakers who didn't really know how to make films because they hadn't gone to film school. And they just like did what they thought they thought. And in the way, it kind of became a bit creative. And so I do think that although not everybody spokes out of somebody like Guy Madden, there's a lot of filmmakers who really have very different traditions and aren't necessarily influenced by him, but the same mode and mechanism that the environment that rose up Guy Madden definitely brings to light other aspects and makes things possible in Winnipeg, where it's not going to be as possible in a place like Toronto just because it takes so long to get from one part of the city to the other and everything is so expensive. And then the filmmakers themselves have to spend their time just trying to financially get by.
So in the midst of that incredible community that is so self-sustaining, there exists a community of volunteers to help make something like this happen as well. But I understand in the last couple of days here leading up to the festival, you're still looking for more. If people are listening and are interested in volunteering, how can they do that?
Yeah, we're definitely always looking for volunteers to help out with door and also just to help out with guest services. We do have a number of filmmakers coming in from different parts of Canada, and one from obviously from the USA, who was the co-director of Eastern Anthems, the Cicada documentary. And we would love for people to reach out to us. You can reach out to us at assistant@windex.org, and Samira, our festival assistant, will help coordinate that. And we more generally just want for people to also understand that our festival is pay what you can. So there should be no limitation for people to come as well. So even if you don't have the time to volunteer, just even read over our program at windex.org, which is WNDX.org. Most of our events are at either the Gas Station Theatre on the Wednesday and the Thursday. So we have the James Asmundsen retrospective on opening the festival Wednesday, October 1. And then the next day we have our very popular, still to this day, One Take Super 8 event. On the Thursday. And then we move over to the Rachel Brown Theatre. For those who don't know where that is, it's right above the Across the Board Game Cafe.
Yes.
And we use the same doors as that. And instead of turning to the restaurant, you just take the elevator up.
Absolutely.
And so it's a really great space there as well. We're thrilled to be there for this year. And just if you have friends who love insects, for example, just to spread the word.
Absolutely. We'll link to all this information at our website, classic107.com, and on the Classic 107 app. The WNDX Festival of Moving Image runs from Wednesday, October 1st, all the way through the 5th. And it's been wonderful breaking this all down with you, Cecilia Araneda, the Executive Artistic Director of the festival. Thank you so much for stopping by the studios to tell us more.
Okay, thanks so much.